I thought it was pretty good. All right. So we're going to quickly go through an introduction of Sphera and the MDM capability. We won't spend a whole lot of time on that because we know everybody wants to see the product. We'll spend a few minutes on MDM, the background, and I thought it was pretty good. All right. So we're going to quickly go through an introduction of Sphera and the MDM capability. We won't spend a whole lot of time on that because we know everybody wants to see the product. We'll spend a few minutes on MDM, the background, and then we'll go right into the demonstration. And Trent will do a bang up great job bringing us through all of that. So let's just proceed and get on with our show here. Next slide, please, Trent. So just Sphera at a glance, as you can see, we put some of the logos of some of our customers here on the slide there. We represent many different industries, asset-intensive industries, consumer packaged goods, food and beverage, fertilizer, um, energy, utilities. We're pretty much in almost every asset-intensive industry around the world. We are global. As you can see from the map, we have a global scale and reach with thousands of customers around the world in 75 countries. In fact, we have one customer who operates in 70 countries and 12 languages in our software with 7 instances of ERP systems. So we go from very simple 2 or 3 site companies all the way up to the multinationals as well. You can see from the awards on the lower left quadrant there from Verdantix and Gartner, Plant Engineering, we've done a pretty good job and well represented in the marketplace. And also from a financial perspective, we are very well funded, having been acquired by Blackstone, one of the largest private equity firms in the United States, if not in the world, when they acquired us a few years back for almost $1.5 billion. Next slide, please. Just a quick history of our MDM technology and platform, and especially the standard modifier dictionary, which is the language of MRO. It's the technical dictionary that helps describe all of the many thousands of different kinds of things that you use in a standardized way so that it can be highly structured and then useful within the business. And that dates all the way back to 1978. Some of you may not even have been born then. I was, but anyway, a company called Intramat introduced the SMD and a software product called Structure 1978, which was an on-prem NDM and procurement system for MRO. And we acquired the assets of Intramat from IHS, which acquired it in 2004. We acquired that in 2016 when Sphera was incorporated. Concurrently, in 1998, the UNSPSC version 1 came out. So we already had a rich, deep technical dictionary for MRO 20 years before UNSPSC was invented. In that year as well, 1998, SparesFinder was incorporated in the United Kingdom, and they introduced a cloud-based MDM solution to the market. 20 years later, in 2018, we acquired SparesFinder, and since then we have been improving and investing in the technology, merging the best of both together into what is today known as Sphera Cloud MDM. Next slide, please. And the next slide. Great. We wanted to just kind of set the table. These are just some of the statistics or, issues that we run into, right? Many companies are behind on plant maintenance. They've got deferred maintenance, latent maintenance. They're late on their rounds and inspections. And so what happens is you have to run assets, you have to run production in order to make product, in order to sell it. But what you end up with impaired assets, and you're really running with trading off risk of an incident occurring versus being able to make product. This is more important in industries like refining, oil and gas, where you could run an asset under impairment, but then you run the risk of a leak, a seep, perhaps a fire, or worse, and explosion. In food and beverage, it could be um, a clean production line regarding food with high regulation, and any kind of a leak or seep would contaminate the food, and you'd have to throw away the product and start the production over again. It could also result in recalls of food if the issue wasn't caught and the food went out into the market. Larger companies have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of unique equipment in many plants around the world. So we're dealing with multi-language, we're dealing with multi-ERP, multicultural, and hundreds of thousands, if not more than a million unique MRO spare parts. And the thing about MRO is there are 2,000 to 3,000 unique noun modifier pairs or classes of things that need to be described. So it is a very large scale problem. Finally, criticality is often not used at some plants or in some companies. And what that means is defining things that are production critical, mission critical, or safety critical, and assuring that you have done your inspections, you have done your maintenance. And when you need to do maintenance, it's very important that the right parts, tools, and consumables and skills are available at the time the maintenance needs to be done. That means that they're in the storeroom. And if they're not, the maintenance needs to be deferred and scheduled at a later date. Again, that cycle of being behind on maintenance. The alternative to not having parts on hand is having too many parts on hand and carrying excess inventory that you don't need to carry. So pooling inventory across plants, pooling inventory across business units helps reduce the need for high levels of safety stock and frees up working capital for use elsewhere in the business. Next slide, please. So wouldn't it be great if we could solve for those sort of things? Increase production availability, do it safely, reduce that excess inventory, and in doing so, reduce spend and improve efficiencies in procurement. I won't go through this whole slide, but the business case for MRO is significant. We just wanted to touch on that very briefly. Okay, thank you. Next slide, Trent. Thank you. Because plants are not static, they're always changing. Equipment is replaced, updated, enhanced, new production lines come on, shutdowns and turnarounds occur, new plants are acquired or built. There are regulatory requirements that we have to achieve that change over time. We might do an ERP upgrade. Because of all of these external and internal factors, often we find that our data is not achieving or isn't clean enough or good enough to meet the business needs. So there's sort of this roller coaster of intervention, get the data clean, reintervention again, get the data clean. And by the way, data churns. It goes bad over time. People modify it. They might be in the ERP system making changes, free-form text, there's no governance, there's no rules, and so the data gets bad over time. What we want to do is eliminate that roller coaster, define the standards, perhaps using the standard modifier dictionary as a fantastic starting point, get the data clean once, and then have a system of workflows and rules that is supported by a platform to keep that data clean over time and enable new data to be added that is clean at the time that it is captured. And so we're going from the left side to the right side, which we call the Sphera approach. By the way, I forgot to mention, everybody is muted, but if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to type them in the chat and we will try to answer them as we go. If we can't get to them today, we'll respond in writing and send an email out after the webinar within the next day or two. Okay, on this slide, this is sort of the logical diagram of the solution. So in the center is Sphera MDM for MRO with govern, finder, and transform modules, single database in the cloud with the right parts in the right place at the right time, right? We can ingest information, process that data, and create that good, clean, classified, enriched information for use in the business. We have bidirectional real-time connectors, Open REST API. We also have SAP specific connectors. We are agnostic of language and of ERP system or any business system that needs that information. So what that means is if you're running JD Edwards, Maximo, PeopleSoft, Oracle, SAP ECC, SAP S4, we can support that with a single version of the truth across many instances of ERP. And if you're consolidating to a single ERP, for instance, moving to S4HANA, that's fine because all the data is mastered in Sphera MDM, and all we need to do is change pointers from one ERP system to the other. And as your plants migrate from one ERP to the other, they will still get the same good, clean data that they had before. And it can even be enhanced with a different set of rules that conform to the new ERP's data requirements. Next slide, please. Okay, I think we're going to shift gears now into the solution. And Trent, if you go to the next slide, I think this is where I'm handing it over to you.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
so
think
thank
so.
you so much, everybody. It's great to be here. And I wish you all the best. And Trent, go ahead and take it away. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And I hope that everyone kind of gets a feel for, why the standardization of data is important and why clean days data is important and the management of that data is so important. So now we're going to kind of get into how Sphera does that, right? So MDM, which is our product, Sphera Cloud MDM for MRO, can really be thought of in four kind of sectors, right? So it is a holistic solution. We do everything from data cleansing. We have an in-house team of 150 engineers. They are mechanical and instrumentational engineers who are data experts. Some of them have been with us for 16, 17 years. And that's what they do. That's their job. And I mean, they're the pros at getting that data clean, getting it standardized, getting it deduplicated, and enriching it. Okay, so just as important as getting that data clean, though, right, is keeping that data clean, as Dave alluded to. And that's where our governance software comes into play. Okay, and that governance software, you can think of it as guardrails to keep your data clean when people are messing around in your system, they're adding new parts, they're managing parts, they're moving parts around. MDM govern is really going to help keep that data clean throughout the life of the site. Next, we have Finder, which is our MRO search tool, which connects to your ERP, such as SAP or your EAM. As Dave mentioned, our solution is ERP and EAM agnostic. We can connect to any system to help you find your parts in an instant. And we'll see that in just a second. You can really think of it almost like Google for MRO. So when an engineer needs something, they log into MDM, they type it in, motor, pump, whatever it is, and they can find it within seconds. Okay. And finally, analyze. So we do have configurable reporting and dashboards to help you kind of give you snapshots into your data, give you kind of reports on duplicate checks and the quality of your data and things like that. And that's kind of the final piece of MDM. All right. So the backbone of it all, as Dave kind of introduced, is our standard modifier dictionary. That is our standard taxonomy. Okay. And when I say it's the backbone, I mean it's the blueprint. It is what drives our solution. It's what allows us to clean the data. It's what allows our customers to maintain their clean data. And what it is a collection of 2,800 noun modifier pairs. You may refer to them as item classes and subclasses, which are equipped with abbreviations and synonyms, attributes, definitions. We have sample values built into it. We have a stock image library and other guidelines and rule sets. And what that allows us to do, like I just mentioned, is it allows us to clean the data. It allows our customers to search their ERPs with ease, and you'll see that in action in a few minutes. Our software generates standard high quality short and long descriptions in accordance to any ERP or EAM requirements. We verify attributes, translate, and really overall just minimize user input and error. Okay, and kind of just to give you an idea of what that would look like on paper, right? If we have one example, one noun modifier right here, right? If we have a ball bearing, just as one example, that ball bearing in our dictionary, you can think of it like an encyclopedia. It's broken down into item details, attributes, and common usage. Each of those pieces is then broken down into more pieces and broken down into more pieces. So just the sheer magnitude of our dictionary, if you stacked all of the noun modifiers on top of each other, this thing is absolutely massive. It's a wealth of information. And like Dave said, it is the oldest and the richest in the world. Originally created in 1978, 46 years old. It's been around for a very long time, and it's been modified and enhanced over those 46 years. Okay, so hopefully that kind of gives you an understanding of how we're getting that data clean. We've been using this dictionary for hundreds of customers over those 46 years, so it is tried and true. It's the real deal. All right, so now, so how do we use the standard modifier dictionary? What does it look like in action? And this is going to take you kind of behind the scenes, right? I mentioned that we offer data cleansing services, right? So this is what that looks like. When we get some original data, some part data from our customers in the form of whether it's an Excel sheet or a text doc, whatever it is, our data cleansing team then goes in and they break down the descriptions provided by attributes, and then the system rebuilds those descriptions in a standard modified way. Okay. We also offer data enrichment. Okay, so if that data is missing gaps, such as this, for example, right, you see a lot of these attributes are missing. If the data is missing a lot of information, if it does have gaps, we do offer data enrichment. Our team goes out and they do research to fill those gaps for you. Okay, especially right for those priority or those preferred attributes that are key. Like, right, for an example, AC motors, you need your output power, your rotational speed, all of these attributes in red. All right. So the next piece of that, like we mentioned, just as important as getting that data clean is keeping that data clean. And the way that we do that is with our data governance software. Okay. And we'll get into it in just about 30 seconds. I promise you'll get to see it in action. But kind of just to introduce some of the features and functionalities before we get there, like I mentioned previously, those guardrails, right? So what is that really? It's going to be our configurable workflows, our configurable change requests. We have a duplicate detection. So if users go in and they try to already exists, detected the duplicate, it prevents you from adding that part. So duplicates are a non-issue. We have a user-friendly interface, as Dave mentioned, ERP agnostic. So, I mean, I've mentioned it too. We can connect to SAP, Maximo, PeopleSoft, Infor, which is now Hexagon, I believe. And we're multilingual. Any language that you need, we can make it available. We have ready to go. We have several ready to go off the shelf. All right. So with all that, let's go ahead and jump into a demonstration of the software itself. Okay, so what you see on my screen is Finder, like I mentioned, right? So that is the MRO search tool. You can think of it as Google for MRO. And this is going to allow users to come in here and search for a part and show them in their system, right? In their SAP, it's going to sync to their SAP, their ERP, their EAM, their Maximo, whatever they're using. It's going to sync to that, and it's going to show them exactly what they have. Okay. There's a few different ways we can search. If we want to do a general search, just search motor, pump, we can do that. If we want to search by a specific part number or multiple part numbers, we could do that as well. But for now, just as an example, let's say we're looking for a motor. So I'm going to type in a motor. And it has pulled 11 results, 11 possible matches for motors at my plant in Texas because I'm in Texas. It has defaulted me to Texas. And these are the motors that exist in my plant in Texas. Okay. Now, obviously, in the real world, you're going to have quite a few more results than just 11. So you may need to speed up your search a little bit. We can come in here and we can actually start applying filters. So let's say we wanted to look only at AC motors. And let's say we're looking just at 2 horsepower AC motors, and we can apply that filter. All right, so that's going to narrow our search quite a bit. Now we have 2 possible results at our plant in Texas. However, you'll also notice that I have this blue button right here, show all 204 items. So if I actually go ahead and press that, that is going to give me full visibility into my entire organization. So Finder is now searching across all of my plants, across all of my ERP instances, across my entire organization for AC motors with 2 horsepower. And that's extremely powerful, giving you that full visibility, kind of acting as a sight glass into your entire organization, right? Now, I have these results. Let's say I wanted to see more details about one of these. Obviously, if I hover over them, it shows me kind of a preview. But if I click this button right here, I can actually view more information about this motor. You'll see we do have a stock image library just to give the users an idea of what it is they're looking for. We have all the attributes listed out here. If I go to descriptions, I have a clean, short, and long description. Something I wanted to mention is our descriptions are configurable. Anything that you see is configurable. So if I wanted to, I could move the phase up to the top of the description. In the short description, I could change the order of the attributes. I could change the abbreviations of the attributes. It's extremely configurable, and we can make it work exactly as you all need. All right. Also, I can translate these descriptions in real time if I wanted to. Again, any language that you need available, not just the ones that were flashed up there. Classification, if you guys are using UNSPSC, we do automatically map UNSPSC to the noun modifier, depending on the noun modifier. And that's any version of UNSPSC, whether it's 10, 14, 19, 22. We can map it to the noun modifier. Over here under plants, we can see at which plants this motor currently exists, right? So this motor is currently at North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. And along with that, we can also see kind of a history of this motor. So all of the change requests that have been made involving this motor, kind of upkeeping accountability, keeping visibility on everything, right? So we can see that, for example, I created this motor on April 8th. It was done by myself, and it has been synced to the system. All right. Additionally, we do offer bills of materials for equipment and any related documentation. So if you wanted to upload a user manual or a data sheet or a quote, for example, we could upload them here, and this just acts as a nice repository. Everyone can access it. Really nice ease of access for all of that information. All right, the last thing I wanted to touch on this page up here at the top, you'll notice we do have the ability to extend materials or copy materials from one location to another. So if I were at the Texas plant and I needed to move this specific pump to, say, I don't know, the Arizona plant, I could just extend this item literally with a click of a button. I do have other actions up here as well. All of these are role permitting. Okay, so MDM does have a user and role management system, meaning that we can change permissions of users depending on their role, depending on their title. We can give them more access, we can give them less access. You know, maybe you don't want everyone coming in and changing global data. That could be disastrous. But on the other hand, maybe you want to make extensions super simple and bypass a workflow and not have to worry about any approvals there. Okay. All right, so just a couple more things on Finder, and then we're going to jump into how we would just an example of creating a new material. Okay, so within Finder, we do offer a side-by-side comparison tool, which is very useful. We have a lot of customers who love this. The boots on the ground folks like seeing, exactly what are the differences between these two materials, which one am I looking for, which one's going to work for me. And along with that, if users want to make changes to multiple materials at once, if they want to extend or copy multiple materials from one location to another, or maybe they want to change the supplier, they want to change the lead times, we can do that, multiple materials at once. We can make changes in bulk. And what we can do is if I select these two materials, for example, I can load them up onto my truck tool using this button right here. And my truck, you can almost think of it like a online shopping cart, okay, like Amazon, whatever, right? You add it to your shopping cart. You can see now you have these two materials in your shopping cart, and we have a few actions available, right? So like I mentioned, quick extend, we can extend these materials from one location to another. We can copy the material numbers to a clipboard, save this as a search, export them in an Excel spreadsheet, or we can move them over to our bulk updater or our bulk loader. Okay, so MDM does have a bulk load or bulk update feature. We can upload, 10, 20, 100 materials at once into our system. Or we can, move existing materials into the loader to make changes to it, whether we're changing the lead times, we're changing the min maxes, any of those MRP settings, we can do all of that in mass. Okay. And just so you're aware, I think Dave hit on this already, but any of the changes that you make in MDM, because we sync to ERPs and EAMs, any changes you make in MDM are reflected in your system instantaneously, thanks to our APIs. Okay, so if you do have that API connection, it is a bilateral sync. Any changes made in MDM are reflected in your system. Any changes made in your system are reflected in MDM, to keep consistency. All right. So that essentially wraps it up for Finder. It's super smart, super easy to use. Even if you were searching, right, abbreviations or misspellings, Finder can decipher exactly what you were looking for. And that's all thanks to our dictionary. So simple, very, very simple, very easy to use, very simple, very straightforward. We have a lot of users who really, really like this feature. Okay. So with that, now we'll kind of get into the govern piece of the software, right? So if, for example, kind of going on with our example that we had, right? If we were looking for a two horsepower AC motor, and we couldn't find exactly, the one that we were looking for, and we need to create a new material or request a new material, right? How would we do that? So up here, very simple, you have this create item button. Clicking that is going to kick off a request or a change request to add a new material to our system. Okay. And that is going to be part of a workflow. So MDM utilizes configurable workflows. And let me pull up my PowerPoint very quickly. So MDM utilizes configurable workflows to ensure that everyone who needs to see or have eyes on a request can have eyes on that request. Okay, so what we're going to go through right now is a requester form of a change request. Okay, and you'll notice as we go through that, this requester has a ton of tools in their tool belt. We have a duplicate check, we have all the pre-built rules, we have the standard modifier dictionary, that standard taxonomy at our fingertips. All of this is in our tool belt. Okay. And when I submit that request at the end of the form, it then goes to the next step of the workflow, which in this case is just very simple, just an approver. Okay. And that approver then has their own tool belt. So they can review the request. Maybe they can add to it. Maybe they add more context, until they eventually get to the end and they submit it. And then it is synchronized to their system. It's uploaded into MDM, and then it's synchronized to their system. And I know I keep harping on this, but it doesn't matter what the system is because we are agnostic, right? So it can go to SAP, it can go to Maximo, it can go to SAP and Maximo if you're running multiple, okay? And just to give you an idea that our change requests, or excuse me, our workflows are configurable, we can have as many steps in those workflows as you want. It's really up to you. We workshop with you. We work with you to really find the optimal setup to how your business is going to run smoothly. Okay. So if you want, we can go from a requester to a data steward or a content manager or someone of that sort, to a final approval and then upload it into MDM. You could have 4 steps, you could have 5 steps, you could have 7 steps. It's really up to you. But the point of this, the significance of the workflows is to ensure that all of the change requests is guaranteeing that clean data from the start. It's being reviewed, it's being added onto by the respective people. Okay, so let's get back into the software now. We are going to request a pump, okay, together. So I can choose the ERP instance. I can choose my plant. Let's say that I want to add this pump to my Arizona plant. I'm going to hit continue, and that's going to kick off that workflow or that change request. Okay. And I actually have an example pulled up here, and we'll actually just go ahead and add this boulder pump together. All right. Whoops. Let me get that right. All right. So first step of the workflow, or excuse me, the first step of the change request, very simple. I'm just going to showcase some of the different fields that we can utilize, right? So if I can have a calendar field, I can very easily pick a date. We have drop-down menus. And I just want to emphasize that everything you see on this screen for the next 10 minutes, this whole change request is configurable. I mean, I know I keep saying that word and you're going to get tired of me saying it, but every step, every field, every answer choice is configurable to your organization. Okay. So like I said, we have drop-down menus for kind of routine information. Go ahead and hit continue. It's going to bring us to supply chain. And here is where the duplicate check is going to take action, right? So manufacturer name. So we're adding this Boulder Reliance electric motor. So I am going to type in Boulder Reliance electric. It's going to finish that for me. And I am going to copy the manufacturer number, paste it in here and add it. And you'll notice when I added it, it's actually blocked me from adding this material because it has flagged it as a potential duplicate. So I literally cannot hit continue. If you can hear me clicking, I cannot hit continue because this exact part number already exists in my system. Not only does it have to be an exact part number, even similar characters. So you'll notice it says 355. I'm going to change that to 3SS and I'm going to try to add it as well. And you'll notice it has given me this warning again. It is a potential duplicate. So it does do kind of a fuzzy match to similar part numbers. Okay, just in case maybe the user made a mistake. Maybe they couldn't read it properly. It was on an old label, something like that. Now, I can continue because it's not an exact part number, but it has still given me this warning that, hey, I need to double check what it is I'm inputting. All right. So for the sake of the demo, let's go ahead and add some uniquity to that, and I will add that. All right. And same goes with supplier part number. Okay, so MDM does a duplicate check on manufacturer part numbers, supplier part numbers, and form fit function identical descriptions. And we'll see that in just a second as well. And that'll make more sense, hopefully. All right, so continuing on our descriptive info, this is kind of the fun page that I like showing off. Now, normally, right, when you are adding a new material to your system, you are building that description from scratch, whether it is free text or maybe you're selecting a noun and then selecting the attributes that are applicable to that noun and then filling out the attributes as they are available in the supplier catalog or the manufacturer catalog, whatever it is you're looking at, right? However, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this description from a supplier catalog. It could be from a manufacturer catalog. It could be a legacy description. And I'm going to paste that into this technical description box and hit scan. Now, what the system is going to do is it's going to parse through the description that I provided. It's going to automatically detect the noun modifier, or as you may call the item class and subclass, and it's going to prompt all of the relevant attributes for this noun modifier. And you'll notice that it has already populated the ones that are available based on the description that I provided. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of reiterate that. So all of the attributes have been populated based on the description I provided automatically for me. I didn't do anything. I just pasted it and I hit scan. Okay. And not only that, but the short and long descriptions in accordance to the standard taxonomy, the standard modifier dictionary, the short and long descriptions have been generated automatically for me. I didn't enter anything. I didn't know free text. This really takes the load off of the user and ensures that every single AC motor is going to have the same format in the short description, and it's going to have the same format in the long description every single time an AC motor is added to the system. Okay, so no matter what, they're always going to be in the same format with the same attributes, or excuse me, the same abbreviations every single time. Okay. Also, the UNSPSC, right? The classifications, whether it's UNSPSC or NATO or an internal classification, that can be mapped automatically based on the noun modifier picked up by scanner. Okay. So you'll notice I didn't really do anything on this page. It's all been done for me. Okay, so not only are you getting time savings, you're also getting that standard guarantee, that standardization guarantee, and ensuring that that data is clean from the start right when it's created. Okay. So scrolling down a little bit here, kind of getting past all these attributes, we do have description notes. If we want to add any notes to the description itself, units of measure, base unit of measure each. If we wanted to add an alternative, we very well could. Let's say one case has 4 of these motors, which is kind of silly, but we'll just roll with that. Additional information, I can upload a data sheet, a user manual. I can upload any information or any documentation that's going to kind of support this request and then be useful later on. So you may remember that I mentioned that kind of document repository. So anything that gets uploaded here, everyone can view it as they need later on. It's also going to help the approver, the next step of the work, make their decision, kind of get a better understanding of what it is exactly that is. Let's go ahead and hit continue. Notice, okay, so it has given me a warning. So this current step has warnings, review your data. So the current warning, this poll attribute is a preferred attribute. It is indicated with this yellow star. So we can create preferred attributes, which are not necessarily mandatory, but it will give me a warning when it's not filled out saying, hey, this is important, you should add it. And that's exactly what's happened. On the other hand, we can create mandatory attributes, or excuse me, mandatory fields, not just attributes, mandatory fields that must be filled out in order for the user to continue. And this is key for a lot of people because, you know, a lot of users maybe sometimes accidentally or maybe not so accidentally skip a lot of information, a lot of key information that they shouldn't. So for the poll, we'll just say one poll and we'll move on. And now again, you should notice that it has given me a warning. Okay, so again, this is showcasing these guardrails, right? So it's giving me this warning that it is a potential duplicate. This exact description for this exact AC motor already exists in my system. It may not have the same part number, but the description is exactly identical to something that's already in my system. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is kind of, again, showcasing those guardrails. So I'm going to come in here and I am going to create a unique field or add a unique attribute, and we can move on just for uniquity. Obviously, that is way against the rules, and you don't do that in the real world. All right, so the next page, stock and logistics. So kind of just showcasing that we can do dynamic fields. If I were to choose stock, for example, right, this is going to create new fields. We can guide users down the right path. They only see what they need to see, so it's not overwhelming. The forms are dynamic to keep things moving. and really kind of take, like I said before, taking the load off the user and making it easy on them. So costs, we'll just say $200. As I mentioned in the previous page, these red dots do indicate that these fields are mandatory. So reason, we'll just say demo. Lead time, we'll do a standard of 20 days. And estimated annual usage, we'll say 100, right? And that's just showcasing that we can do kind of these impression fields with calculations and other calculations in the middle of the form, right? Purchasing, we can default fields. So for example, the purchasing group can be defaulted based on the location that you're adding it to, based on the noun modifier that you're creating. Any fields can be defaulted to any value. We have tons of dependencies, tons of configuration available. I know I keep saying that, but I cannot stress enough how configurable and how fluid the software really can be. It's really meant to ease the load of the users and make their lives easier when creating and adding data, and at the end of the day, keeping that data clean, right? So the next page is operational risk. Again, kind of just showcasing some of the different fields that we can add. Criticality, of course, right? If we wanted to say it's a B. Health and safety. This is really to show that we can do dynamic workflows. So if we, for example, were to label this as a HSE item, we could add a workflow step. So what I mean by that is, like I mentioned before, we have our previous, we have our configurable workflow, the one that we talked about previously. If we wanted to, we could add another step in that workflow that's triggered by a certain field. So maybe it's not always a step, but it's a step if, maybe it's an HSE item, like the example we just discussed. All right, so if I can get back into my demo. All right. And continuing on, our final page is the summary. So I'm going to go ahead and full screen that again. So the summary, we have everything that we inputted, all the attributes, all the fields. We can review that, make sure it all looks good. Once it does, we can go ahead and submit that request. Now, like I said, when we first started this form, right? When I submit this request, it's going to move on to the next step of the workflow. So it's no longer in my hands, right? I have submitted it. It's gone to, let's just say, for example, an inventory controller, right? And their job is to then review the request, maybe add some context to it. Maybe there was missing fields that I forgot to input, and there's fields that maybe me as a requester, I'm not authorized to add, or maybe it's not up to me to add. And what might that look like? So let's jump into what that approval would look like. So I am now switching hats, right? So I have put on my inventory controller hat. I'm switching roles, and hey, I just got an email on my phone. I got a new request. So I can follow that link on my phone. I can log into MDM, and I can view that request that the other Trent just made, right? So if I hit my view request, this brings me to my request dashboard, and you can see I have a ton of requests. I'm obviously not doing my job. So let's go ahead and open up that request that we just completed together. And you'll notice it is a little bit different, right? So we can review all of the information that was inputted by the requester, right? So we can view the short description, the long description, the stock requirement. We can change this information. And down here at the bottom, we have all of the other fields that I am responsible for, me as the inventory controller now. So I'm responsible for these fields. And when I finish the request, when I finish my part of it, I can then submit that, and it gets uploaded to MDM and then, synced to my, just say, SAP instance as an example. Okay. Now, however, another beautiful thing, people love this, is if there is an error, right? Normally the approver would reject it. And then the requester has to go in and they have to resubmit that request, spend all that time going through the request. Obviously with MDM, it's not that much time, but normally they would spend all that time creating that request, just for it to get rejected, and it could get rejected again and again. However, with MDM, we have an instant messenger built into govern. So I could come in here and I could message. This would go directly to the requester. I can message and say, hey, you don't need 100 of these. That's insane. All right. And that is going to send that message to the requester. He would get a ping on his phone or his email, wherever. And he could say, oh, you're right. I fat fingered that. That was only supposed to be 100 used in a year, which is still very high. Um, but just for the sake of the example. So this kind of discussion forum, this instant messenger can save tons of time going back and forth with the requester and the approvers. All right. So that kind of wraps up the new item request, change request, right? So that is just one example. Now within MDM, we have tons of change request templates, all of which are configurable. We can request new materials to be added to the system. We can request item extensions. We can request item archiving, unarchiving, item management. And we also support, which I won't get into just for the sake of time today. I think we're about 5 minutes left. We also have bulk. Oops, let me go ahead and cancel out of this. We also have a bulk loading feature, which I mentioned previously, right? So we can upload, manage, change multiple materials at once using our bulk loader, right? So here I just have an example of these 5 materials. And this bulk loader does utilize the scanner tool that you saw in the change request form previously. It just is going to save a ton of time if you have to do 10, 20, 100 materials at once. You don't want to go through the change request material one by one. So our bulk loader does utilize the scanner tool, all of the same validations, all of the same dependencies, and it is all configurable as well. Okay. All right, cool. Dave, were there any questions that came up that maybe we can revisit or need to be discussed
Yeah,
vocally?
hey Trent. Yeah, there was one that came up particularly of interest regarding mobile, and I wanted it. Can you speak a little bit about the walk down app? I don't know if you have that live or maybe you have a slide. We have a few minutes. We could maybe cover that very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to. So obviously, so this would be kind of supplemental to our data cleansing projects, right? Obviously, we try our hardest to cleanse and enrich the data, like 99, 95% of the data via a desktop exercise. However, there are instances where we can't find anything about the material because it's either missing a manufacturer name, it's missing a manufacturer part number, or there's just not enough information. We can't confirm exactly what that material is. So something that we offer to kind of fill those gaps is our walk down app, our walk down tool, which can be used on a tablet, it can be used on a laptop. And very similarly to MDM, it is all configurable. So what the walkdown app does, it actually puts the power of the standard modifier dictionary in the hands of warehouse operators, maintenance engineers, people on site to capture data that may be missing from the data cleansing exercise. Okay, and let me see if I can pull up a slide very quickly. I don't know if Dave, if you had anything to add to that. I think that was essentially the
Yeah,
gist of it.
in addition, because it's synchronizing with MDM, if we know the storeroom layout, the aisle number, the bin number, shelf number, we can actually schedule the parts for walk down to save time. So as you go down the list of parts that need to be evaluated in the storeroom, you can focus on one aisle at a time and not have to walk several aisles, maybe the whole length of the storeroom, back and forth, and have a cart with your camera and your tablet or your laptop, whatever you're using, um, and be very efficient in how you go about doing the capture of information.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's perfect. I forgot to bring that up. And so what our data cleansing team will actually do is mark specific materials for walk down, and then the materials that have been marked for walk down can actually be delegated to different users as well. So, depending, like you said, whether it's based on location, whether it's based on material type, individual users or groups of users can go out and start collecting that data. And now, just to give you a very rough idea of the process that we recommend: identification during the data cleansing project. Users that are delegated these parts that need to be walked down download the parts onto their tablet using the walk down application. They go into the field to locate those parts. They capture the data, missing data of those parts based on what's available in the field. They save that information, they upload it back into the MDM platform, and that data is then verified either by you, our clients, or by our data cleansing team for additional enrichment or standardization. And just to note, this can be used offline, right? So obviously, like Yandi said at the very beginning, my background is offshore, right? So I was very familiar with something very similar to this. It was a pen and paper, so it wasn't nearly as efficient. But right, so if you have this tablet that can go offline and capture data offline, it's extremely useful, because obviously you don't have Wi-Fi when you're out in the field, in those warehouses, on an offshore rig, and places like that.
Yeah, real good, Trent. Thanks so much. Yandi, I think
Yeah.
we're right at the top of the hour. So is there anything else you'd like to say or add?
Yeah, so maybe regarding the hour, it's okay, yeah, if we off or extend some a little bit. I think there's one question in the chat box here. So it says that please show how to return the goods to suppliers or manufacturer that have sent the mismatched specifications from purchasing using MDM. Any document is needed for the returning. Thank you. So is it possible to return the mismatch goods to suppliers or manufacturers that have mismatched specifications using MDM? Is it, yeah, how is it? Is it can be done in the MDM?
I think that's more a question for procurement and the ERP system, that if an item was ordered that was the wrong one, that there's a goods return process.
Oh, we lost audio on you, Dave.
Yeah.
Want to do is understand why a part was ordered with the wrong specification in the first place. So if the data was not clean that was used for procurement, or if an engineer specifies a part that they require for reliability or plant maintenance, and it was free-form text to create the purchase order, that's when those kinds of errors are more likely to happen. If you're using Sphera MDM with the SMD, and you have standardized all of your descriptions for all of your parts, and you have because now you have structured short descriptions, long descriptions, all the required attributes, images that show what the part looks like. You have workflows. So engineers, maintenance technicians, inventory managers, procurement specialists, hazardous material specialists, whoever can make sure all the right information is in there, including MRP settings and what have you. And so now you have approved that data. So the data that goes into ERP is supposed to be clean. So then if the wrong part was in fact ordered, it's rather, I should say, received, then it's probably an error on the vendor side sending you the wrong thing. And then I would check the history of the order and say, no, we ordered part 1, 2, 3, 4, and you sent us part L345 or something like that, right? So that's something that you would do an inspection on your receiving dock before you transfer the goods into the storeroom. Yeah.
Right.
So part of this is about getting the data clean. Remember the roller coaster, making sure it's clean and keeping it clean over time. That will eliminate these kinds of mistakes and other mistakes. I mean, there are examples where the wrong part was pulled from a storeroom. I'm thinking of an LNG plant on the west coast of Africa that had a fire some years ago because a cooling fan belt failed. It didn't have a Kevlar reinforced belt. It was a non-Kevlar belt. Physically, it was the right size. Maintenance technician pulled it from the storeroom, installed it on the fan, put the fan back in powered on, and during the night when nobody was around, the belt broke. The fan didn't turn, and the LNG plant overheated, so that created a fire. Very simple mistake. It could be just missing a K in the part number. The K might have meant Kevlar, right?
Yeah.
Those are even worse mistakes because they can lead to significant risk of safety issue, hazardous chemical loss of containment, fires, explosions, safety, etc. Right?
Yeah,
It's a good question. Thank you for that, whoever asked it.
I see. Thank you very much, Dave, for the explanation. So even MDM can prevent the errors in buying
Mm,
parts and so on, yeah, so that we try to prevent it as early as possible, so
mm.
the errors will not happen. And I think I have one last question that is very interesting. So, how easy is the integration between Sphera MDM and to the ERP system or EIM system? Is it like a one-time thing, or do we, once it's connected, do we have to like recheck it every once in a while, or how is it done?
Do you want to take that, Dave, or
Jen, do
shall
you want
I?
to cover that or
Okay.
yeah?
We offer several different several methods of integration. Whether it's an SAP connector, if you're using SAP, we have generic APIs that also connect to, as we mentioned throughout the presentation, to any system, whether it's SAP, any ERP, any EAM, or multiple systems at once, right? So we have customers that are using 13 instances of SAP. We have customers that are using 5 instances of JD Edwards and 2 instances of Hexagon. So it is really very it's very easy to do in the sense that it's very flexible, right? And the services team can get into workshop after workshop about how that gets done specifically. But that is something that we handle on our side and kind of work with your IT to get set up. I don't know if Dave, you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, once it's set up, it's usually very stable. We go through middleware or
Yeah.
direct connection to the consuming system, the ERP system. It can also be a procurement system, whatever can support on the other side, the connection or the API or the middleware. When ERP systems are going through updates, sometimes on their end, their connection is broken somehow. It could just be one field, something in the way it worked in a new version or an update or an upgrade. When that happens, often the super user can fix it at the customer. And if that doesn't work, we have 24/7, 365 support. That's part of the license agreement. But if it's something more significant that requires a little reconfiguration, um, or maybe a customer is moving from SAP ECC to SAP S4, or from S4 1806 to 2023. And the not only is the connection a little different, but maybe the data model has also changed. In that case, we can come in for a small statement of work to update the integration as needed. It's not difficult. It may take 2 weeks of work or something like that to make that happen.
Okay,
We
very
like
well.
to stay ahead of those things and plan them. We have had customers say, "Hey, we're going to implement S4." They tell us months in advance or a year in advance, and so we'll take care of that. There might be changes they want in the workflow because of the way S4 works. They may be acquiring a business in an M&A activity, and they've got another 100,000 parts that they want to have cleansed and assimilate and deduped. as part of that. So there's many ways we get involved with customers.
Okay, very well noted, Dave and Trent. Thank you very much for the elaboration. So I think before I end the Q&A sessions, is there anything that you would like to highlight or address, or any specific topics or questions that arise your attention, please? Or is it good?
No, I have tried to answer most of the questions in the chat. I think we've gotten to everything. And Trent, I think there was one question about, what is the best structure for master data? And I don't know, this may take a little bit too much time, but what we could do is drill into different noun modifiers in the SMD and show all of the required attributes, the optional attributes, and kind of illuminate the way SMD is structured. And most customers use SMD as is off the shelf or out of the box. It solves for 99% of needs, and that 1% is usually not really needed. But we do have customers that will modify it and make it their own by adding custom fields and attributes or changing whether a field is mandatory or not. And they might even add some of their own classes as well. So it's completely flexible in our system. And if they have their own taxonomy, we can import that and use that as well.
Yeah, I think that's good. I was thinking about pulling up this SMD, but I think we might get too into the weeds and maybe lose some folks.
I think so. I mean, we're already 10 minutes past. Also, it's if a prospect, Yandi would like to see a custom demo, obviously we can set up time with your customers and go through it with them one-on-one.
These questions, MTS will also compile all the questions and also the answers, and to send all these questions and answers to the participants who have participated the feedback survey. So it's 11 now, and I would like to end the session, Q&A sessions, and also the demo and the presentation. So thank you very much, Dave and Trent. I know it's in the middle of the night for you, so I would like to express our highest gratitude to our remarkable speakers, Trent Cooper and Dave Cookets, and also to our partner manager, Spencer Kwan and David Ross, who always supported us for this webinar. Okay, so I think I might need to switch to Indonesia. So yeah, in order to announce the lucky winner. Okay, so Trent and Dave, if you want to get some rest for next day, it's okay. You can leave. So thank you very much for your time, and yeah, have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone learned something and had a good time, because I did.
Okay, thank you very much, Trent.
Thank
Oke,
you.
baik Bapak dan Ibu, sesi tanya jawab sudah berakhir. Kemudian sekarang saya sebagai moderator izin terdapat dua pemenang dua apa namanya, dua orang yang beruntung, dua penanya beruntung untuk mendapatkan saldo e-wallet ya. Oke. Mungkin di sini saya sudah dibantu oleh tim marketing saya untuk spin the wheel ya. Oke, so mungkin boleh tolong di spin untuk pemenang pertama ya. Oke, Pak Rahmat Noviali. Oke, oke, kita dapat boleh di spin lagi. Oke, Bu Ahyani Siregar. Oke, mungkin nanti untuk teknis saldo e-walletnya akan dihubungi. Oke, izinkan saya untuk mengingatkan acara tahunan kami, yaitu Tiara Reliability User Conference atau ya sampai 31 Oktober 2024 untuk Tiara yang bersangkutan ya Bapak Ibu. Oke, eh tadi yang sudah terjawab kami kirim, jangan lupa Bapak dan Ibu untuk diberikan ya. Orang beruntung yang mengisi feedback survei dan mendapatkan materi. Kemudian saya sebagai hari ini, terima kasih banyak Bapak dan Ibu yang sudah menghadiri webinar pada siang hari ini. Saya moderasi kembali di webinar selanjutnya.